Hi, I'm Adrienne from Brush Trowel, and today we are going to use Firmolux Italian Lime Plaster Intonaco Piatto. It is a very coarse grit Venetian plaster, and it is for interior and exterior uses. One of the characteristics that is very unique about it is that it gets this very nice, thick, deep pock sort of look when you're troweling it on. I've done it here with just one color on each coat, and here we've done a 3-color process on the second coat, and the same 3-color, just a little bit more diversion in the colors between the lights and the darks. So you can tint the Piatto with either universal tints or powder pigments. A 5-gallon bucket will go anywhere from 175 to 200 square feet for 2 coats. So first, we're going to prime the wall with the micro primer. It's a really great adhesion, and it's a great base to put any of the Firmolux Italian Lime Plasters on. So you're usually just loading up your hawk and loading up your trowel and just putting on a real thin coat of it to just create a nice binding and a smooth surface to work on. Easiest ways to load up your trowel is to put your product on your hawk, and you just take a little bit and you run it straight out, so you load up your trowel and you're not filling up the whole thing, you're just getting the edge so you can use the sweet spot of your trowel. It also allows you to get into the corners with a nice neat edge. And then you unload your trowel, and then you can use both sides to move your product around. So we just finished putting on the first coat of micro primer. We're going to let it dry for 2 to 3 hours, and then we'll come back and we'll put on a coat, our first coat of the Piatto. So here at Brush Trowel, we can tint your plaster for you and match any paint colors, or what you can do is just mix in your own colorants or pigments into it. And we just put it right into the product and then just slowly work it in. And you want to make sure that you get it off all the walls of the bucket when you're mixing it, and just make sure you've gotten real thorough. So now we've mixed up all the product with the universal tints, and we're going to load it onto our hawk. And you're going to go through quite a bit of this product at first. You always want to make sure that you just cover up your product so that it doesn't dry out. And I usually put a wet rag over the top of it as well, just to keep the moisture in there. So we've let the micro primer dry for 3 hours, and it is all, you can feel to the touch it's all dry. It does have some rough spots, which is going to be a nice tooth for the Piatto to grab onto. Next, we're going to put on a solid coverage, thin coat of Piatto. So one of the things you want to be careful about when you're troweling is to not do the windshield wiper motion, which is like this, because you just keep getting that same movement. What you want to do is to kind of load up a space and then make sure that you're pulling it out organically. And that you always finish with going from dry into wet areas. That way you can get the natural organic lacing effect that the product will actually do for you. finished our first coat of Piatto, and we're gonna let it dry overnight, and then we'll come back and put on the second coat. And I've left it with a little bit of variation in color because that's kind of the technique we're gonna have, or the look we're gonna have for the Piatto on this sample board. Now we have finished putting on the first coat. It's dry, and we're going to put on the second coat. And this coat is where we're going to have the timing to close it up and to smooth it out and to close the pores and give it that fine, smooth look that Venetian plaster has with the organic shaped pox in it. So when I'm mixing up the Piatto, I actually try not to mix it totally in with the color so that I can get those lighter drifts of the plaster showing through. It kind of helps give it a little bit more of that organic light and dark look. And you'll see it when I put it on, that those streaks of the lighter color comes through, and it gives it a little bit more of that natural look. And this will be like the first of the natural pox, so we're creating those shapes. Now that we've covered the wall with the second coat, and you'll kind of have to go back and forth and do this, but you'll see it as it dries, that we're going to go back in and close out the pores and seal the plaster so that it ends up having that really nice smooth finish. It's kind of burnishing it while it's wet. But it's a timing thing, so if you're burnishing it and it feels like it's a little too wet and lifting up, then you need to stop and just give it a little bit more time and then go back in and start burnishing it again. And burnishing it is just lightly pulling your trowel, and of course you've cleaned your trowel and such. And you just put about a medium amount of pressure, and you want to try and hit it on the sweet spot on the trowel. As you're burnishing, you can feel where you've gone, and you can feel how smooth it is, and then you can feel the roughness of where you haven't done it. Sometimes you get a little bit distracted as to where you finished when you're moving across the wall. I have finished burnishing the wall, and it now feels all very smooth. You can keep burnishing it if you want to keep on getting a little bit more sheen out of this product. I kind of like to leave it a little bit more on a dull note, but we're going to let it finish drying overnight, and then we're going to come back and put the stencil on it tomorrow. Now that the wall has dried overnight, and when you feel it, it's nice and smooth, it's got movement in it, we've got the nice pock showing through, so this is really a great finish by itself, but we're going to add the stencil texture on, and we're going to be using the Venetian plaster Piatto, and I've just added a little bit more raw umber to it to make sure that it has a little bit of darkening, so we're going to have a little variation in the color. First of all, what I do is I put the clip-on stencil level so that we make sure that the level is sitting on there, and we're not going to have any movement left to right with the stencil. It's going to be very vertical. And then we're going to use the Marrakesh stencil. These are both from Cutting Edge Stencils, and we carry those. So once we get it set up and we're going to just move down the wall, we will just load up our brush and just pounce it into the stencil. And I use the hawk to hold the stencil down to the wall so I don't get too much movement. And I put it on consistently random, so it's got thick and thin spots, and even some spots where it doesn't have any product on it. And we'll just do this and cover up all of the pattern. And when we pull it off, then we will smooth it. We put the slightly darker Piatto texture in the stencil. And once you've done that with the paintbrush, then you come by with the Bondo blade and smooth it over so that you don't have all of the peaks from the brush putting it on. You don't want to push too hard so that it doesn't push the product out and seep under the stencil. You just want to slightly smooth over the peaks. Once you have smoothed over the whole stencil, then you're ready to pull it down. And this is the fun part, you get to see the pattern. And because the plaster is not so wet, that you can just kind of set it up and start on with your next one. So with the repeat, there is a little ticker here that you want to line these up with so you can see how they sit on top of each other. You also do have to make sure that it's level because sometimes the little tickers are a little bit off. So one of the things I do is after the plaster comes off is just take the little Bondo blade and you can just run it up and cut it and off it comes. So if you have a couple of little areas to clean up, you can do that. So one of the nice things about working with plaster is that you can tape the stencil over the wet plaster if you're delicate with it and it won't transfer onto the back. We are down here in the very last corner, so we're going to put on the last of the plaster. And one of the nice things about having the hawk when you're going into corners is that you can really push the stencil into where you need to get. So when you're putting the product on, you're not having to hold it or trying to tape or do anything awkward with your hands. Your trowel can actually, or your hawk can actually really help you out. We've now finished our 3-day process of the Intonaco Piatto Firmolux Italian Lime Plaster. As you can see, it has been a very easy process and application. You can visit our website at brushandtrowel.com to get more information.